back defensively and plenty of time. Jackie Young with the layup. Last year, 86.4 points per game. But Carolina gave up 81 points a game.
The email arrived at 3 in the morning. Its subject line so desperate that it made Caitlin Clark's heart ache even before she opened it. Please help. My students are giving up on their dreams because we have nothing left to give them. How does one respond to a message like that? A cry from a teacher not for herself, but for a generation of children quietly slipping through the cracks of a system that has forgotten them. It wasn't about laziness or lack of ambition. It was about a school stripped of resources, where hope itself seemed an endangered species. What Caitlin didn't know as she clicked on that email was that it would lead her to a moment of profound realization. A reunion with a woman whose compassion had quietly shaped the foundation of her life 2 decades earlier. At Lincoln Elementary School, under the harsh flicker of tired fluorescent lights, Mrs. Patricia Williams sat surrounded by towers of ungraded papers and textbooks held together by tape and willpower. The November rain tapped softly against windows that hadn't been properly sealed in years, and the room smelled faintly of worn carpet and instant coffee. It was long past midnight, but she couldn't sleep, not when her students were losing faith in their futures. At 62, after 38 years in the classroom, Patricia had watched budget cuts strip education down to its bones. Art was gone, music was gone, even the library felt like a ghost of itself. The computers crashed more often than they worked, and the children had begun to look at their dreams like luxuries they could no longer afford. As she began typing, she hesitated only once, knowing how small her voice might seem in the noise of the world. "Dear Miss Clark," she wrote, "I know you must receive thousands of requests, but I'm writing on behalf of my 28 third graders who deserve far more than what our system can give them. We have no supplies, no recent books, and no hope of enrichment activities, but they have spirit and they have dreams. I can't bear to watch them give up because the world won't give them a chance." When she hit send at 3 a.m., she had no idea that her words were about to find their way to a woman who owed her everything. Caitlin read the email during a short break between training sessions. The name at the bottom made her freeze. Patricia Williams. It tugged at something deep in her memory. A blurred image of a warm classroom, a kind face, and the sound of encouragement spoken softly over the confusion of fractions and equations. When Caitlin was 7, her parents had both worked long hours and couldn't afford private tutoring. It was Mrs. Williams who had stayed after school every evening, guiding her patiently through tears and frustration, refusing to take payment despite her parents' insistence. "Helping children is what teachers are meant to do," she had said with a gentle smile. Caitlin stared at her phone, her throat tightening as she realized it might be the same woman. Turning to her foundation director, she said, "Sarah, find out everything you can about Patricia Williams at Lincoln Elementary, and clear my schedule tomorrow. We're going to Des Moines." The drive there the next morning felt like traveling back through time. The gray Iowa skies hung low as Caitlin passed familiar landmarks. The small community center where she'd first dribbled a basketball, the narrow house where she and her family had once struggled to make ends meet. When she pulled into the school car park, she was struck by the same bittersweet nostalgia. Peeling paint, cracked pavements, but still the unmistakable aura of care. Inside, she found Patricia exactly as she remembered her, surrounded by mismatched posters, chalk-stained fingers, and a spark in her eyes that not even exhaustion could dim. "Mrs. Williams," Caitlin said softly from the doorway. The teacher looked up, startled, and then her eyes widened with a kind of recognition that transcended fame or headlines. "Caitlin," she whispered, standing slowly. "My goodness, look at you. I've been following your games. I'm so proud of you." The two women embraced, tears cutting quiet paths down their cheeks, as years of unspoken gratitude and forgotten moments of kindness hung between them. For Caitlin, it was like coming home. For Patricia, it was the realization that one of her little birds had truly flown. When they finally pulled apart, Caitlin asked the question that had been sitting in her heart since dawn. "Are you the same Mrs. Williams who tutored me in maths when I was 7, the one who refused to take any money?" Patricia nodded, her voice trembling. "You were such a bright girl, Caitlin. You just needed someone to believe in you. Your parents were doing their best, and I thought, well, It's what teachers are meant to do. Caitlin smiled through her tears. You didn't just help me pass maths, she said. You taught me resilience. You made me believe that asking for help wasn't weakness, it was courage. You showed me what it means to care more about someone's future than your own comfort. Patricia shook her head humbly, unaware that her small act of kindness had sown a seed that would one day bloom across an entire nation. What Caitlin learned next left her speechless. Patricia had been quietly spending her own salary to buy classroom supplies for over a decade. She had covered field trip costs, bought winter coats for children who came to school shivering, and even paid for internet access in a few homes so that her pupils could study during lockdowns. She had done it all quietly, without complaint, because she believed that no child should feel their dreams were too expensive to chase. That night, Caitlin sat in her hotel room and wrote a plan that would change lives far beyond the walls of that school. Within weeks, the Caitlin Clark Foundation announced a new initiative, the Williams Grant, a program designed to fund teachers who go beyond their job descriptions to nurture their students' potential. The project provided classrooms with updated resources, mentorship networks, and direct financial support for educators who, like Patricia, refused to give up on their pupils. When Caitlin returned months later to cut the ribbon on Lincoln Elementary's renovated library, she insisted that Patricia's name be engraved on the entrance plaque. This, Caitlin said at the ceremony, her voice breaking slightly, is for every teacher who believes that hope is still worth teaching. The crowd of children, parents, and colleagues erupted in applause, many of them unaware of the quiet chain of compassion that had begun 20 years earlier in an after-school math session. As the rain eased outside that November morning, Patricia stood beside Caitlin, tears glimmering in her eyes, her heart full in a way it hadn't been in years. She realized then that her sacrifices had never gone unseen. They had traveled silently through the life of a little girl who grew up to use her platform not just to play basketball, but to remind the world that gratitude is a force far stronger than fame. In that moment, under the soft hum of the newly installed lights, both women understood something profound. That real success isn't measured by trophies or test scores, but by the light we keep alive in others when the world tries to extinguish it.
There's Agumbawale and
Big perimeter rebounder.
Seegers coast to coast. Too much spin and then gets blocked by...
As they spoke, Patricia guided Caitlin around the modest classroom, showing her the books she had purchased with her own money, the art materials she'd paid for out of her grocery budget, and the handmade decorations she'd crafted late at night to brighten the atmosphere for her pupils. Every corner told a quiet story of devotion, of a woman who had given everything she had, not for praise or recognition, but because she believed that education was the purest form of service. Mrs. Williams, Caitlin asked softly, her voice heavy with disbelief. How long have you been spending your own money to keep this classroom running? Patricia hesitated, her cheeks flushing slightly, as though she'd been caught doing something improper instead of something extraordinary. Oh, it's nothing really, she murmured. Perhaps a few hundred a month. The children need books and pencils, and if the district can't provide them, then someone must. Caitlin felt her stomach tighten. A few hundred a month meant thousands every year, sustained over more than a decade. For how long? She asked quietly. Patricia sighed, eyes glancing toward the weathered classroom windows. The budget cuts started about 15 years ago, she said, but the children's needs never stopped. They still deserve beauty, art, field trips, the kind of learning that makes them believe their dreams matter. Caitlin was silent for a long moment, her heart breaking as she realized that the same woman who had once helped her for free had been quietly sacrificing her own comfort for generations of children. Mrs. Williams, Caitlin said finally, her voice trembling with emotion, I need you to sit down, because what I'm about to tell you is going to change your life, and the lives of every student who walks through these doors. She took out her phone and made a call that would change the future of Lincoln Elementary forever. First, she announced, I'm funding a complete renovation of this school. New computers, hands flying to her mouth, unable to process what she was hearing. But Caitlin wasn't finished. Second, I'm establishing the Patricia Williams Educational Excellence Fund, an endowment to ensure that no teacher in this district will ever again have to choose between their financial security and their students' needs. Every teacher will have an annual budget for classroom resources, enrichment projects, and field trips. Tears glistened in Patricia's eyes, her composure breaking as years of quiet struggle were suddenly lifted. Caitlin reached for her hand and continued, "And third, I want you to help me build a mentorship program that connects professionals with students who need guidance, just as you once did for me. You taught me that one person's belief can completely alter another's destiny. Let's build that into something lasting." What grew from that conversation became one of the most transformative educational programs in American sport, eventually reaching more than 10,000 students across the Midwest. Yet its true legacy could not be measured in numbers, but in renewed hope, in teachers rediscovering their purpose and children daring to dream again. 6 months later, Lincoln Elementary stood reborn. The once faded walls gleamed with color, the library shelves overflowed with new books, and the classrooms buzzed with energy. At the grand reopening, Patricia stood before a crowd of students, parents,